So, really quickly, I appreciate you guys taking the time. I am going to focus a little bit more. I'm Alex Jahangir, by the way. I'm from Vanderbilt University Medical Center. And very similar to Dave was saying, a few years ago was walking into the academy and saw Steve, who I knew, and I was like, what are you up to? And he showed me these implants. And it really took me by surprise, because I think one thing I've never really been into is the newest screw or nail doesn't really excite me, right? Like, for me to change what I was doing really took something that really, I thought really was truly revolutionary, is an extreme word, but something that's really different. And so I started, looking at this for something for distal femurs. Distal femurs are fractures that all of us treat, non-union rates of 30 to 40%. There really hasn't been a great, boom product out there. So that's why I figured this is something that really was great. So, I have had an opportunity to use the CarboFix, all the implants, so nails, plates, etc. And I thought, this would be an interesting series to look at. My distal femurs that I get, I wanted to have a CarboFix plates and see how they did. So what I essentially did was I took my experience, my distal femurs that came in when I was on call, and I used the CarboFix plate. And then what I realized is what I could do is I could compare those patients to the 3 or 4 years before that I had that I used exclusively stainless steel plates, all synthes, and I can compare the two. And really, the implant selection was really determined by the time that the patient came in. Okay, and I wanted to then say, all right, well, I started with just doing that, and the next thing you know, I had about several cases, and I started saying, all right, I'm going to find the ones that I've had follow-up for more than 10 weeks and see how they did. Well, just like any good study, I tell you the methods, right? So essentially, we went through and looked at all the medical records, looked for all the stuff you normally looks at, and then I wanted to be honest with myself and look at the radiographs, okay? And so I, as well as 2 other fellowship-trained orthopedic trauma surgeon and a musculoskeletal radiologist, independently, we looked at our results, and the results you'll see came from that. So essentially, here we did. We essentially found 39 patients, 14 in the CarboFix group and 25 in the stainless steel group. And at the end of the day, the carbon fiber group were older, had more chronic conditions, and the stainless steel group, the only difference is they had a little bit more open fractures. Very similar, though, gender, smoker type, fracture type, so a pretty good match. What I really was proud of is our follow-up on these patients. I had an average follow-up of 39 weeks for my carbon fiber patients and 47 weeks for my stainless steel. And really, if you look, these people were walking maybe a little faster. There was no hardware failure. There was no non-unions. And the stainless group, this was statistically significant. It had a 36% non-union rate. Should say 5 out of the 9 were open fractures. But if you remember what I mentioned earlier is the CarboFix group had the same amount of open fractures and fracture types as when I compared the 2 cohorts. So this was very convincing to me that this stuff works, right? And so I've still continued to use them, and I figure for this purpose of this, I want to just show you guys some cases as well. So I'll go through, and mine are all distal femurs, although I do again want to say I've used the nails, I've used the proximal humerus plates. But I think, this is kind of neat. This is an 81-year-old female. You see a relatively simple split. And this is I think what was one of my hesitancies, and I think a lot of people's hesitancies, is you're like, how are you going to find the holes? How are you going to, you just don't want to deal with it, right? I mean, you just want to deal with doing something that's a little different. Maybe I was frank. That was my reservation. Well, I'm here to tell you this is as easy, if not easier, than what you're typically used to. So just like you do, you'd obtain and fix your reduction, very similar. This thing right here is a template that you use to tell you how long of a plate you need, right? Because in what you do with your metal implants, you put it up, same thing. This is actually the plate. You see this? The plate is being positioned, and this is common. It's a jig just like you use anywhere else, see? It's just very common. You make the box, very easy. You put K-wire, K-wire, and this is what it looks like, right? So again, very similar. And so there you go. I got and this is actually one of my first cases. So I made the box. Then this has a little cone shape, so you can selectively choose your angle within a certain degree of certainty. And there you go. There's the implant, and that's what it looks like post-op, right? Pretty straightforward, very, very similar to what you're used to with the current technology. And this probably was more liberal than I would make, but again, I was just one of my first cases. So, and this is the immediate post-op on that patient. I want to go through, and just for full disclosure, that specific patient was like really old, and she passed away from something else. So I don't have many post-ops on her, but I do have many years of these other things. So the 88-year-old patient, MVA, similar story, right? Intercondylar split. Here we go again. Obtaining reduction, making the box. Now this device, does this look familiar to you guys? So the Whirlybird, I don't know if that's actually the official name, but I think this set has a Whirlybird type device. So again, everything you're used to, right? This quick brings that together really closely. You can do everything you're typically used to doing with this. And this patient, this is her immediate post-ops. At 8 weeks, I began weight bearing on her. 5 months, I mean, you can see it's consolidated really well. 10 months, I mean, it's beautiful. And again, what I love is you can see right here. I mean, it's beautiful. And then with her, I had 60-week follow-up. And again, she's doing well. She's not had any complaints and so on. So 33-year-old, and so this isn't just for the old, just torn up patient or simple fall. This is a patient who has everything broken with him, right? I mean, you just see this. It's destroyed. Open fracture. It's a sign of a surgeon struggling, right? It's a bunch of K-wires. So that's me right there. And again, very similar technique like you'd use. And here we go, immediate post-op. 6 weeks, and you can already start seeing, I believe, some callus forming. 10 weeks, I began weight bearing on this guy. I remember how common it was. And I suspect part of my reason I slowed down his weight bearing was really because of the intracondylar and joint involvement. And here is his 15-week post-op. He's doing well, never followed up again. And I'm assuming he's doing really good. And I'm going to kind of rapid fire through some of these. And 56-year-old, again, 3A open, distal femur. There's a split. We kind of, got his alignment right. And at 4 weeks, you're starting to already see some callus. I began weight bearing at 10 weeks, and he never followed up after this. But I know that he didn't have any problems with it because he still stayed at Vanderbilt. And I saw a 1 year after this 10-week visit note at his cardiologist, and he's doing great, and it says he's walking so much. And so he never even felt like he had to even come back for a follow-up x-ray. And I think that really is pretty remarkable, and you see how well that's healed all that comminution. 51 week, again, bunch of other issues. So I delayed this patient's weight bearing because of acetabulum and ipsilateral calcaneus. I mean, look at this, just destroyed. Here we go. So post-ops. And then what Bruce is talking about, start notice right here, that medial callus. And it continues. And it continues. And continues at 54 weeks. And it's just remarkable how well that healed. And another point Bruce made is we still use the same techniques that we always use, right? You spread the screws. And I did put a few lag here to get things, but you can now bring two. You have the flexibility in the implant, and you have the flexibility in your screw position. It really, really fine tunes this what you've been taught to get healing. So, as all of you know, I mean, not everyone is going to have all these 3A destroyed distal femurs. I think what a majority of my cases, as you saw in my description of my cases, as well as what I'm going to show you, we have a lot of these older people following with periprosthetic fractures. As we continue to move forward in time, we're going to see more and more periprosthetic fractures. I love this implant for that. 66-year-old periprosthetic, 2 weeks out, 6 weeks out, again, there's that medial callus that we're mentioning. 10 weeks, she began weight bearing. I probably could have started at 6, so it's maybe a little chicken. That's probably my typical MO for all aspects of my life, just so I say. 26 weeks, and she's doing great, and that was the last follow-up on her. 65-year-old, same story. What I wanted to show you here is this was one of these interprosthetic fractures that we, again, are seeing more and more of. I didn't hesitate with this implant there. As you can see, while no surprise at how one fixed it, I think what I wanted to highlight is the fact that wires, cerclage wires, can be applied to this implant again without any difficulty. So there's a cerclage, immediate post-op. 12-week, I began weight bearing on her, and you can see it's already starting to heal really nicely. 60 weeks. I had follow-up in between. I just didn't figure I'd show you every single x-ray here. But look at 6-week follow-up. She's done great. No issues. 78-year-old, same level fall. What I want to highlight with this case is this. Notice this anterior cortical wall, and I took a picture at the time. And here's the implant in situ. So now, again, how old is she? 78, right? Bad bone. 6 weeks, I let her begin weight bearing. And there's that, look at, there's some callus, and then there's something forming there. And as you can, I want you to just focus on that. 3-month follow-up, more bone, and here she is at 5 months. Again, just amazing healing. And 9 months, and that was it. 67-year-old, again, this patient was really interested. She had a bad liver transplant. And this is what I wanted to highlight. So immediate post-op, patient's on the liver list, so sick patient. 7 weeks, maybe a little bit of that medial callus. She gets her liver at 11 weeks, follows up with me, and then I don't know if it was the implant or in fact she got a new liver, but I mean, look at this. I mean, just healing like a champ. And then just continue to heal to a point that her main thing, she's got this bump here. But I went through a bunch of cases, but I guess my take-home point here is what I deem to be what I deem to be actually a very standard good study with IRB approval, with independent physicians who do a lot of this, and with my personal experience, and thus to my bias part of it, I'm very comfortable with this implant. I think I've shown some examples of it healing, and I continue to this day to be very, very comfortable with it. So thank you for your time on that, and I suspect we'll open the floor to some questions or some other things. So thank you all.